Welcome to ABA Inside Track, the podcast that's like reading in your car, but safer. I'm your host, Robert Perry Cruz, and with me as always are my fabulous co-hosts.
Hey, Rob, it's Diana.
And it's Jackie McDonald.
Well, we are here in the studio getting ready to record a new episode of the podcast in which we talk about behavior analysis and behavior analytic research. And typically we'll pick a topic and we'll pick some articles, some recently published articles related to that topic. But this week we're doing something a little bit different. We're going back to the old grab bag. That's right.
We're grabby. Grabby grab.
Get excited. So in this episode, we just pick out 3 random articles related to behavior analysis of our choosing, or we let, fate decide what we'll be discussing.
Somehow it usually seems to work out where it's something that we're interested in.
Usually.
Yeah.
Usually.
Just by chance.
It's just, the odds are in our favor.
Happenstance.
Karmic balance, perhaps.
I guess so. Yeah.
Who can say? So we've printed out every article ever. We put it in a big bag. We're going to stick our hands in, and one by one, we're going to grab it. We're going to read it.
We're going to bag it.
We're going to bag it. And we're going to discuss
Watch out for paper cuts.
All right, we're going to edit out the part where we sit and read them really quickly, because that would be boring. That wouldn't be fun to listen to. So when you next hear this, we'll have read these articles and have taken notes on them too. Okay, here we go.
And we're back.
And we're back. Everyone ready?
I'm ready.
All right, so this is grab bag 11. I think I call it grab bag 11 in the notes because I lost track of the numbers.
In my tentative working title for this one is, it's time for another grab bag. I'm not sure what number it is.
It's hard. I'm going to have a hard time making the webpage for that and remembering the URL. So we might just call it grab bag 11 and hope for the best.
Or just, it's time for.
Yeah.
That's going to be hard to find.
We might forget that.
Yeah, it's a
as well.
Tricky one.
You know what? Guess what? Doesn't matter.
Why not?
Because it's grab
No one
bag.
else cares about this conversation except the 3 of us.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
Everyone's like, get on with it.
Yeah, they can't wait.
They already
they're
deleted.
Champing at the bit.
That's right. They deleted the episode already.
It's chomping.
It's not.
No, it's champing.
You know what, you guys? I know you're right, but I'm still going to say chomping.
Well, that's why we're here, Jackie.
It's also, in terms of fun phrases, it's
champing.
And it's also hoist by your own petard.
I never knew that one.
Yep.
I've never even heard that one.
I don't know.
But I like to call Lake Champlain Lake Chomplain.
There you go. I like to eat those chocolates.
Mm-hmm, they're
They are
so good.
Well, who would like to go first tonight?
Me.
All right, so Jackie, reach in, grab. A lot of mouth sounds on that grab bag. What's in
like
there?
A centipede grab bag.
Gobstoppers.
It's like that scene in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom where there's all the bugs everywhere.
I was pretending that was I thought that it would be a good article swishing sound, but I guess it wasn't.
It's okay.
Okay,
I
well,
liked it.
I am going to read an article called Making a Tiger's Day, Free-operant Assessment and Environmental Enrichment to Improve the Daily Lives of the Captive Bengal Tiger.
All right, so now read it.
Panthera tigris.
Ooh.
I thought it was going to be about Daniel Tiger since we've had some other articles, but it's not.
Nope, it's not.
Who wrote it?
I'm getting it up.
Oh.
Clayton and Shrock. And it was published in Behavior Analysis and Practice. Guess what? 2020.
All right.
Best year ever.
And so when I saw this article, I did think Daniel Tiger first. My heart goes to Daniel Tiger like real bad. I love him.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I read it, I then immediately thought of early COVID when everyone watched The Tiger King.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I thought you were going to say we've all been trapped in our respective cages.
Whoa.
Wow.
It's like life is a cage, you guys.
But, so remember there was tons of tigers in captivity there?
Yeah,
and so,
not good.
No, not at all. And then I saw a rise in discussion after The Tiger King about all the tigers in captivity, right? Like that's even in that like follow-up episode of The Tiger King that wasn't really The Tiger King.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Right? There was like, and they were like, and all these people own tigers as pets. And then I was like, oh, wow.
I don't think it's good for the tiger.
No. And so that's why I chose this one.
Prince of Tides?
No.
They had a pet tiger.
Oh, okay.
So, Jackie, if I haven't seen The Tiger King, will I understand this research article?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They're not related. It's not like a sequel?
No, they didn't do anything in The Tiger King that they did in this article.
Okay.
That
good.
I remember or
That's
saw.
probably good.
Yeah. So I also didn't know that there was 8 subspecies of tigers. This was in the introduction.
The Bengal tiger.
You gonna go for it? They
There's
didn't.
Is it an
There's,
Indian tiger? Is that a tiger?
There's Tony the tiger.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cartoon
There's
tiger.
a white tiger. There's Daniel Tiger.
Yeah,
I'm up to 4.
I don't know, but 3 of them are extinct. They didn't tell me which.
Oh, okay.
what
So I
they
got
are.
4 out of 5.
Yeah.
That's very sad for the tiger.
And in 2014, according to More Tigers, there was only 3,159 tigers left in the wild in the world.
Yeah.
That's bananas.
It's not a lot of tigers.
No. In 2014, there was 5,000 tigers in captivity. So more tigers in captivity than in the wild. That seems not right.
But that includes people who have tigers as pets, or okay,
Yeah.
it's like Siegfried and Roy. They counted their tigers.
I guess. But tigers are dying every day due to poaching and deforestation, and they're right now considered endangered, with extinction likely.
Really?
Yes.
Yikes.
Except that there are 5,000 in captivity.
Right, but since they are dying at a high rate, it's important to keep some of these tigers into captivity. We have to keep them happy and healthy if we're ever going to have them reproduce and reintroduce them back into the wild and keep extinction at bay. So that is why the authors wanted to work on the study.
Yeah.
Because there's many ways and reasons why people want to keep tigers happy, right? And keep tigers in captivity. So one of the main reasons is money, right? Entertainment of others, and to keep them from extinction. And did you know that some zoos are accredited from the Association of Zoos and Aquariums?
No, but I'm glad.
Me too. I feel like we should be looking at our zoos to see if they're accredited.
I thought more zoos were trying to follow some sort of consistent sets of guidelines regarding, care of animals, focus on giving the animals things to do rather than just be entertainment.
That is true. Yes, that's moving along. But now the Association of Zoos and Aquarium are trying to figure out how to facilitate the ongoing development of species. But now I feel like I should look this up to see if the zoos I frequent are part of this association. The one that I go to a lot is not, but it's a small zoo. So captive animals, we've all seen it, may engage in problem behaviors such as excessive licking, pacing, and aggression. Right? Have you all seen this? There's a fox at the ecotarium that paces around his little cage. Right? That makes me sad. But that is a common problem behavior for captive animals. And these behaviors may be mitigated by enriching the cage in which they live to stimulate a more natural environment, which I have seen the ecotarium do.
I'm going to let you know that locally, the Franklin Park Zoo and the Stone Zoo are both part of the AZA, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums.
Oh, good.
And I looked up the Stone Zoo specifically because when we went there, they had so much enrichment for the animals, and they had people stationed there to talk about how they had set that up, that it was clear that they had a mission for that. That's in Maine.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. And so you just said behavioral enrichment, and that's just described as increasing behavioral choices to animals to support strengthening of species-appropriate behaviors and skills. And so I thought of example in Rick Jr. magazine where they had Champ the monkey, and he was orphaned as a young age, and they wanted to reintroduce him.
Yeah.
But he was scared of climbing.
Oh.
And you have to climb in order to be a monkey.
It's true.
Climb trees. So they had all sorts of different climbing structures to strengthen encourage him to get there. And he did. And then they reintroduced him back into the wild,
nice.
which is awesome. Yeah. So the most common sort of enrichment strategies are foraging challenges. So hiding food, making it harder to get food. Another type of behavioral enrichment is design modifications to help stimulate bigger cats, right? So bigger cages are better, what they said, toys. Climbing structures, yep. And social enrichment is big. So they said they even recorded roars worked to help increase playful behaviors in lions and tigers, which I thought was fascinating. Enrichment not only is good for the animals, but it also has a monetary benefit because when visitors see the animals happy and playing, they're more likely to donate money and go back, right? We've all been there. When you see an animal, and you're like, oh. And so there has been a call for behavior analytic methodology in zoo assessment and implementation because enrichment is happening, but assessment is not. So they made this assessment framework called SPIDER, which I love.
Has that been around for a while?
It's
now?
old, yeah. So this is all part of the intro, yeah. So it's set goals, plan, implement, take data, evaluate, and then revise if necessary, which I love. And they noted that having a preference assessment might be a really important part of enrichment programs, because right now what they see is that staff just take what animals generally like to do, and they don't look at the individual animal. So that's really what this purpose was, to design a free-operant preference assessment paradigm to look at preferred play items for tigers, and they use both scent and items. The scents are hilarious, by the way. So the tigers were residents of an animal sanctuary. They were between 6 and 16 years old, mostly female. There was 2 males, and they were Bengal tigers. They were previously performing tigers and suffered abuse and deprivation.
Oh, that's awful.
Such as one tiger lived in a basement for her whole life.
How do you get a tiger in a basement?
I don't know. And
Once you get it there,
you never wanted
don't
to
want
leave.
to take it back out.
Well, it's probably mad. Like, you don't want to open that door. The
No.
tiger's going to jump out.
Yeah, and
Eat
then
you.
It's horrible.
it was a breeding tiger. So they just used it for breeding and leasing out
God.
for other circus animal tigers. And so when that tiger got to the animal sanctuary, it was the first time it ever saw sunlight.
Oh my
Ew.
God.
Right?
That's gross.
I know. So that tiger also lived with 2 other tigers. And when they tried to separate them, all the tigers were distressed.
Mm-hmm.
So they all lived together
That's good.
in a big enclosed.
Are tigers social creatures?
Yes. You want to separate them and have them close together, but not together
Mm-hmm.
due to like aggression and food, I guess, territory. But for these 3, it didn't work that way. So
Okay.
those 3 was housed together. The other ones were housed alone with tigers on both sides so they could see them, but they couldn't like fight with them. So they did a free-operant preference assessment with each tiger. Each phase was 5 minutes each, and they scored touching, contacting the items with partial interval recording. So the first phase looked at preferred scents on pumpkins. So pumpkins, I guess, were very prevalent. It was probably fall. It's Missouri. So they put some scents on pumpkins. The scents were cinnamon and Calvin Klein obsession.
Sure.
Obviously.
Why not?
Not CK1?
Not CK1.
Oh, not CK1.
My
Calvin
Nah,
Klein.
brain
read your
works
script.
half
Your
a second
line
slower
was-
than Rob's does, clearly.
Yeah.
We script these out. They're very tight. That's script.
But yeah, so I thought that was funny. And I guess that's what they commonly use in the sanctuary. Like, I guess.
Do tigers love Calvin Klein obsession, or just that's what they have on?
What
hand?
about Liz Taylor's White Diamonds?
That's what they had on hand, and I think they were assessing it. So,
Huh?
what I
How
thought,
about Gap Dream?
right? Or Gap Grass.
Yeah, man.
Remember that one?
Oh, Dream was mine. So.
Oh, grass wasn't mine, but I loved grass. Like, who wants to
about some
smell
cool
like grass?
water?
Yeah. But anyway, they used 3 to 4 pumps, and I was like, haha, that's me in high school. Pew, 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 all
Right
over.
on the neck.
behind the ear, on the neck.
And when to walk. through.
Right? There you go. And so, yeah, so they had them on pumpkins. And so the tiger had to not just smell the pumpkin, but had to touch it with its nose, with its paw, in order to have considered a like contact.
Okay.
And then when the 3 tigers, they had 6 pumpkins. So all tiger had their own pumpkins, but they couldn't separate the tigers. Right.
Okay.
So they were very serious about this. Okay. And then in phase 2, they took the preferred scent from phase 1 and they put them on 3 new enrichment toys. So there was a cardboard box. These are like the best enrichment
Fun.
toys. Yep. A
Yeah.
variety of sizes.
Okay.
A pile of leaves, which I loved. I guess it was like a lot of leaves. It was like 2 to 3 feet.
Enough to
Deep.
jump in.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And a favorite toy. So all of the tigers had favorite toys. They're usually those large balls, right, that you see at zoos.
Like an exercise ball.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but harder. You know, in bowling balls, I did not know, but I learned in this article that tigers can bite through bowling balls.
That is
Jeez.
terrible news.
Right? I was like, wow.
Holy cow.
hmm So bowling balls was one
If you
of their
can bite through a
favorite toys.
bowling ball, you can bite through anything.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I don't know if bowling balls are really the strongest substance known
Well,
to
they're
humanity.
stronger than my head.
Yeah.
so-
Can you
Yes.
bite through a bowling ball?
No, I'm not
Let's
saying it's
try.
not impressive. I'm just
When I read that, I was like, nightmares.
like
I'm
a
gonna
steel
have
girder,
nightmares.
you
Yeah.
know?
Okay.
So again, they just didn't smell them. They had to engage with them. They had to play with them, move them around, right? And so phase 3, which when I originally read phase 3, I was like, why they put phase 3 in here? Because it doesn't make sense.
I'm sorry, Jack. I need to pause for a sec. Did you actually think that Well, now that I know they can bite through a bowling ball, I'm more scared of tigers. Like, if a tiger bit you in the head, somehow you were going to be okay from that one?
I don't know.
It shocked me.
It's just,
so
yeah, it's
I kind of was
upsetting.
always under the impression, like, oh, if a tiger were ever chasing me, it would kill me. And there's nothing I can do.
no,
No bowling ball will help me.
I thought he would kiss me and lick me.
I don't think so.
Be
I mean, maybe if they weren't hungry, they would ignore you. But
Yeah. But anyway, so in phase 3, which I was like, why did they put phase 3 in? But it all came clear in the discussion. I'm not going to tell you till then. They had the highly preferred item that was chosen in phase 2, and they put both scents. So they had 3 of them. They had obsession scent, the cinnamon scent, and no scent to assess the scent of the pumpkin. That's what they say, but they also make an underlying other idea later on in the discussion. So that one, I'm like, why did you do that? That seems like it took a long time, but it's fine. We'll get there. So the most time consuming part of the process, right, was setting up all the materials because they had to move the tigers.
Yeah.
Right. So they had to have additional staff to move the tigers. They had to clean the area. They had to set all of the materials up in a specific way so that the researchers could see them, right? They had to make sure that the tigers were watching them because they were in like another screen. And then with the 3 tigers, you had to move all 3 tigers, right? So the actual assessment only lasted 15 minutes, but it seemed like this part lasted like an hour.
Right.
Right.
I can imagine.
And distressed tigers because they had to be moved.
Yeah.
So they said this is a limitation, is that it took a long time.
Okay.
So they had high away. So what they found is that most tigers preferred a specific scent from phase 1, either obsession or cinnamon.
Okay.
But some didn't care. Like Harry didn't care. Didn't really care about the scent. 6 out of the 7 tigers preferred a toy with the scent on it. So that's interesting.
Between the box
Between the
and
box
the leaves
and
and the
the
toy,
leaves.
they liked the toy.
Yep. And the reason why they did phase 3 here, it's like a little dig, is that when they were talking to the staff at the zoo, they said that scents are the most important thing, so that they put scent on everything to make sure that the tiger will play with it, and the tiger won't play with it if there's not scent on it. But the results suggested no, you don't necessarily need the scent.
Oh.
I know. I was like, why did they do that? Why did they do that? Oh, okay. So, yeah.
Well, pumpkins are scented.
Right, but some pumpkins are scented and the cardboard box is scented.
Yeah.
But the cardboard box, they'll play with the cardboard box or the toy without the scent on them in phase 3. They chose that sometimes more often. So
No, I mean, but pumpkins have a smell.
yes, they do.
Pumpkin smell.
most things
Pumpkin
smell like
smell.
something.
Yeah.
Right. But they didn't pick the like
But an extra scent.
Right.
they didn't pick the extra scent.
Mhm.
They didn't pick like obsession or
Right.
does that smell
I mean,
like
pumpkin
humans?
combined with cinnamon is basically like
a pumpkin latte.
exactly. It's like a pumpkin
Which was the
spice
tiger's
latte.
top preferred coffee drink.
All right. So that happened, right? Then in my notes, it's like, tigers can bite through bowling balls? One thing that they noted, the author said that, preference assessment should be used, right? Because the animals did have preferences beyond what the staff had previously talked about, right? And they did support the assumption that staff can pick least preferred items, but can very rarely pick the most preferred items for tigers. But it can be really costly to enrich environments, right? And it may be hard to get things like leaves and pumpkins out of season, right? When it's
Sure.
they didn't say
tricky.
that, but I was thinking that,
You might have to switch it up.
right?
Right.
And also bowling balls. So what they said was bowling alleys donated bowling balls when they were going out of service, but you might not have bowling balls just lying around.
What are the
Right.
tigers doing with the bowling ball?
Eating them. They're just snapping them.
They're not like
Well, why
smacking-
would you want
smacking
them to do
around?
that? Doesn't that seem like dangerous for the tiger?
I guess not. Guess that's what you do. But anyway, they might play with it too, but
Much like in the jungle, bowling balls are found everywhere.
Like a coconut?
I don't know.
I don't think tigers even live with their coconut.
I don't know.
Okay.
But so basically, the main take home point here is one size does not fit all for the Bengal tiger,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So assessments should happen. They should be part of the enrichment process. They're important, and collaboration is key. So this is where zookeepers and behavior analysts can come together as one. We have a lot of important information that can help inform the zookeepers' practice. Not do it ourselves because we can't do all of it ourselves, right? But be
Yeah.
collaborative
Well,
in
Jackie,
nature.
I just bought a tiger. It's in the basement. So we can all do this together now.
I hope it's a Bengal one.
I think one of our kids is down in the basement too, though. Luckily, he's as
feel
strong as a
fully
bowling ball.
prepared.
So I just thought this was fascinating and so well written.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was a pleasure to read.
It must be hard to have to write an article for a journal in which it's like, hey, everybody, here's a thing about tigers, which is not what you were expecting to read this month in this, month's journal or this quarter's journal, and then have it be written in a way that the quote-unquote lay person behavior analyst could understand it without a lot of background knowledge.
Yeah, they did an excellent job. The introduction really led me, and I was like, yeah. And then discussion just kind of hit home in like little nice ways, right? It just...
There's a real art form to that introduction of like, I want you to feel like you've read 50,000 articles on the topic before you even get to my procedure.
I felt that way. I was
those.
there. I was in it to win it at the procedure section, especially because they said that the tigers that they had were malnourished and deprived and abused. And I was like, I'm in whatever you're going to do to help them.
Jag, have you read the book The One and Only Ivan?
No.
It's not a children's book, but it's like a younger person book. It was like a Newbery Award winner a few years ago.
Okay, I'll read it.
But it's about a tiger, or not a tiger. It's about a gorilla and an elephant who live in a mall. Like they're mall exhibits.
Oh.
It's very,
sounds
very good.
horrible.
It definitely deserved its Newbery Award.
All right. Well, anyway, that was my grab bag. Surprise, surprise, it's about animals.
All right. Thank you so much, Jackie. Well, why don't we take a little break, and then we'll come back, and we'll see what the grab bag has in store for you and me, Diana. We'll be right back.
Do you want to be a BCBA?
Sure, we all do.
Now you can come to Regis College in Weston, Mass. to get your graduate degree.
Choose from any one of these courses.
Masters of Science in Applied Behavior Analysis.
Masters of Science in Special Education.
Dual degree in Special Ed and ABA.
Or be eligible for your postmaster's certificate.
You can complete your degree and be ready to sit for the exam in 2 years. And our 2017 grads had a 100% pass rate on the BACB exam.
Come enjoy practicum placement support, ethics mini handbooks, PhD-level professors, small class sizes, and a service trip to Iceland.
If interested, don't delay. Supplies are limited. Learn more at regiscollege.edu.
Again, that's www.regiscollege.edu, regiscollege.edu. One more time, www.regiscollege.edu.
See you there!
And we are back, pulling new articles out of the grab bag. But before Diana goes with her next article, I want to remind all of you listeners that ABA Inside Track is ACE approved. By listening to the show, you're able to earn 1 learning credit. All you need to do is listen to the episode and go to our website, abainsidetrack.com/getceus. That's GET-CEUS. When you get there, you're going to need to enter in 2 secret code words. I'm going to give you the first one of those now. It is Wanda, W-A-N-D-A. Wanda, the name. Perhaps you watched WandaVision on Disney+. Or you like to wander around your house sometimes. Wanda. That's a pun. That last one was a pun. That's not actually how it's spelled.
Someone's gonna be like, Wander? Because I don't know what WandaVision is.
You know the name Wanda, that popular name that
I know.
everyone's
Isn't
naming
a
their daughters.
fish Wanda the fish?
Oh, yeah, there's
That's
the
a
movie A
movie.
Fish Called Wanda.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good comedy.
I've never seen
Well, it's a good comedy. It's old though, so I don't know if it holds up anymore.
Kevin Kline?
Yep, Kevin Kline, Jamie Lee Curtis,
Yeah.
Michael Palin, John Cleese. You'd like the spiritual follow-up, Fierce Creatures, which has the same cast, but it's set in a zoo, I believe.
I love zoos.
So you'd probably like that one. If you're like, I want to watch a crazy heist, but it's in a zoo instead of in kind of regular old England.
I think I tried to watch Fish Called Wanda when I was much younger and it didn't make any sense to me.
It's kind of a zany heist.
I don't do well with those.
So it's not really,
No.
I don't think it's your favorite type of movie.
I don't do great with those.
What are we talking about? Code words? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Grab bag. Let's get into the grab bag.
Okay.
Diana, it's your turn. What sound does your grab bag make? Oh, it sounds like your grab bag won't start.
not gobstopper grab bag.
No, but it nonetheless, I was able to pull out an article
Okay.
from my grab bag, the title of which is Assessment and Treatment of Escape from Attention in the Form of Conversation by Singer, Claiborne, and O'Connor, published in Behavioral Interventions in 2020.
2020.
And I was fortunate to pick out this article because once I found it, I was like, oh, awesome. This is an article for me because I also am quite motivated by escape from conversation plenty of times.
So true.
How do you host this podcast in which we have
It
to
is
talk for hours?
actually surprising that I do this. But it's different, though. You know, I can talk to no one or to a lot of people easily. But when it's like one-on-one or, God forbid, a small group, that's like the worst.
That's where I come in.
Exactly. That's why we're a good team. I liked that I got to read this article and talk about it for everyone. So only a few studies have really looked at this idea of escape from social attention as a function of problem behavior. A few have, but like not really a lot. So they highlighted a few of them in here, and one of them was Tiger Fisher, Toussaint, Kodak, 2009, and then another was Harper, Iwata, and Camp, 2013. So those would be two for folks to go check out if you're interested in learning about this. And most of the previous research had really focused on the idea of identifying that escaping from attention in the form of a conversation was maintaining the problem behavior and then teaching a better way, more appropriate way of asking to escape that conversation, right? Which I always use, I have to go to the bathroom. I don't know if that was what they used or not, but they taught something like that. That's all well and good, right? But there might be times where that's not necessarily available. So what the Harper and colleagues article did was they looked at teaching an FCR, but then also trying to determine if there are ways that they could make some forms of attention more reinforcing, since it is something that you kind of have to encounter sometimes, right? And they were able to do so to some degree, but not really the same as they had seen in other studies that had looked at making social interaction more reinforcing, one of which is a great article by Dozier and colleagues in 2012. And they thought that this might be because in this situation, they were kind of starting from a place where those types of conversational attention scenarios were actually aversive for the client or the participant versus just being like a neutral stimulus, which was the case in the Dozier study. So they felt like that was sort of the challenge that they had seen here. So the current authors kind of wanted to build upon that and say, well, it's good to teach a functional communication response if one does not like to engage in conversation, right? But if someone's looking to escape from like all forms of attention, that could be really challenging because there's probably going to be times where you need to engage in some type of social communication, right? And if you don't like any of it, then that's just going to be really hard to deal with. So, yeah, so that could really be overall kind of limiting for the individual. And they also made this point, which I think is really good, which is just because you don't like conversational attention doesn't mean that you may not like other forms of attention, because they're not
True.
all one and the same, right? And we act as though like, oh, it's attention maintained, right? Well, what does that even mean? There's so many different forms of attention. And the same could be true for escaping from attention. Just because you don't like one type doesn't mean that you might not like another type. And we kind of like lump all of this together, but likely there are sort of separate classes of attention that may function in different ways. So they wanted to build upon that and look to see if they might be able to find some types of social interaction that were more appetitive and less aversive as well, and see if they couldn't kind of build that into the assessment that they wanted to do. So to quote them, they said, the purpose of this study is to evaluate a procedure aimed to devalue the reinforcing effectiveness of escape from attention and assess its effects on problem behavior and preference for concurrently available forms of social interaction. So they only had one participant in this study. His name was Tyson. He was 11 years old, and he had multiple diagnoses, including ASD, mild intellectual disability, and ADHD. And he was a patient in an outpatient program for severe problem behavior, which included self-injury, aggression, and disruption. And he had been referred over because his parents reported that he was engaging in all of these behaviors at home, basically whenever they tried to talk to him.
Oh, that must be hard, right?
Right. And, I feel for Tyson because being an 11-year-old is rough, right? Those preteen years are like not good for anyone. And he's probably not the only preteen that feels like he does not want his parents to come in his room,
Totes.
right?
Yep.
I feel for him. But the behavior that he was engaging in was dangerous to himself and to his parents. And they did report that he did have a FCR that was go out, please. So like leave the room, please. And he would use that, and they tried their best to reinforce it, but it wasn't always possible to reinforce it because, sometimes there were, self-care things that needed to occur, or sometimes it was occurring concomitantly
Yep.
with problem behavior.
Mhm.
So that's why something needs to be done, right? So just so you know, they did IOA and PI. It was all good. And the experimental design, I'm going to lead us in. There's like a bunch of pre-assessments that they did, but the actual treatment evaluation was a reversal design that included an A, B, C, A, C, D, C, D design. And I will tell you what all those are.
Yeah,
Wow.
No, I think we got it. I think we're good.
We're totally
good?
there.
Okay, great.
Just get the results. I'm sure
I will
it's fine.
explain. I'll explain they were. So, but before they could do that, they needed to do some, of course, initial assessment. So they started things off with a good old preference assessment, and they found items that fit into all of the categories that they were looking for. So they had highly preferred items that included a music toy, an iPad, and a Tangle toy. You guys know that one? It's cool. It's like a little plastic toy, but you can twist it all around different ways.
It kind of has that odd, like,
It looks like a snake.
It looks like it's broken all the time,
Yes.
but it's really just sort of
Yeah,
bending
they're
and
quite
weird.
fun.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't
the-
know that one.
It's like
but
it's more like a fidgety toy. It's like
Okay.
it's like think about if you took a bunch of macaroni noodles and put them on a string and how they kind of all kind of bend in weird ways.
I don't think I ever saw this, but I'll look it up.
Anyway, he liked that, and I would too. And then they had some moderately preferred items, which included rings, but they didn't explain what that was, balls, and books. And then they had low preference, which was a puzzle.
Mhm.
But they didn't really need to use the puzzle, just so you know.
I was really worried about that puzzle, so thank you.
And so then from there, they did a functional analysis.
Ooh.
And what's kind of interesting here is that they did a combo of like a standard FA and then an interview informed FA. So they kept the standard FA conditions that were, I think, requisite for them to use based on where this outpatient clinic was occurring. But then they also talked to the parents and added in some interview informed sessions as well.
Clever.
Yeah. But it did end up that there were quite a few functional analysis conditions that they needed to conduct. So they had an alone condition, a toy play condition, which functioned as a control, a divided attention condition, an escape from demands condition, a tangible condition, an interruption condition, and an escape from attention condition. So there was all of these were happening. And most of those, you, the listener, probably know what they are, but the ones that you might not, there was a divided attention, which meant that Tyson had access to a mildly preferred activity. Two adults were talking to one another and said, oh, we need to have a conversation over here. And then if problem behavior occurred, they delivered brief negative attention, like, we're busy talking, you need to play with your toy type of thing. That's what that looked like. Then there was an interruption condition. In this one, again, the moderately preferred activities were available, but the experimenter presented what they call do-don't demands. So basically something where you kind of needed to like move around in the environment every 30 seconds. And then if problem behavior occurred, the demand was removed and they could re-access the activity. So basically it was trying to see is interruption of activities an EO for problem behavior that would then produce access to escape from the activity plus tangible.
Ooh, that makes sense.
Right.
But the activity
Yeah.
was never removed. You just had
No.
you just couldn't engage with it as you had been because you were following some other instruction.
If you had followed the instruction, then you couldn't engage in
I
it.
like that because then if you can't take away a toy,
Mhm.
right? That
Mhm.
seems helpful.
Yeah, so it made sense. But it was kind of a synthesis of two conditions, right? And then there was the escape from attention condition, which was where continuous attention that was related to Tyson and the activities that he had access to were presented. Like, oh, wow, Rob, you have on a cool shirt with an alligator on it today. Isn't it nice weather outside? Wow, I love the toy that you're playing with. Things like that.
It's like my nightmare.
Yeah, so just like having a conversation with Tyson.
Chit chat. It's like small chat. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Small chat, right? Like, ooh, cold out.
Yeah,
Mm.
small talk,
Yeah, that's what it's called. What did I say?
small chat.
Good old small chat.
Whatever else. Y'all knew.
I
You
know.
know what I meant.
Chit chat.
Chit chat. I like small chat better.
Small chat sounds worse than chit chat somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Like chit chat just seems like I can kind of ignore this until it goes away. But small chat feels like there's no escape. Like it's
Right.
almost a conversation, but it's not about anything worth talking about. Oh,
It is my nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So while that's all happening, Tyson does have access to activities, but then if problem behavior occurs, the experimenter leaves the room for 30 seconds.
Mhm.
Finally, they're gone.
Finally.
Right?
Well, if you won't talk to me, I'm leaving.
Okay, so those are all of the conditions. All
Okay.
right. And then I'll tell you what that looked like in a second because I'm going to go through all the procedures first. But they did the FA, and then they also did a pairwise assessment at home with the parents that was specifically escape from attention in the toy play.
Dana, when you say that they use some of the kind of interview informed responses to make different conditions, did they run them similarly to as you'd run an ISCA with like brief control, brief test, or they ran them with sort of a standard FA methodology? They just made up some conditions that aren't typically seen in like a standard FA.
They ran the FA that they did at the clinic
Mhm.
as a standard alternating treatments design and included most of the conditions I just discussed.
Okay.
And then they ran the one with the parents basically as an ISCA.
Okay.
Just the two conditions. Okay, then after that, after they got the results from their FA, then they did an attention preference assessment, which I thought was really cool.
I love tension
Mhm.
preference assessments.
Yeah. So we used to do this where I worked, and we called it the split room assessment.
Mhm.
Yep.
So we would
Done
take tape and divide the room in half. And it was basically concurrent operants arrangement, right? So like when the child stood on one side of the room, certain things were available. When they stood on the other side, other things were available. And you just measured how much time they spent in each part of the room. So they did that here, except they had quadrants, which is for
Ooh.
everybody, in case you're wondering.
Thanks for that. I would need
Wow,
it.
I appreciate that condescending tone of voice, Dana. Thanks
No,
so
I
much.
actually needed it most of the time. Remember last time when I was like, what's that word mean? Had to look it up in the dictionary.
It's champing, Jackie. The word is champing.
It's okay.
It's fine.
One of my sons is learning about shapes at school, and he said, "What is an 8-sided shape called?" And I was like, "What do you think?" And he said, "A stop-a-gon."
I hope that's your 12-year-old
Isn't that cute?
who's
Okay.
now 13. But
Okay. So anyway, there are 4 quadrants and quadrants, just so everybody knows. So what they did here is they divided the room into 4 parts with painter's tape. And when Tyson stood in each different part of the room, a different social response was available. There wasn't an experimenter in each part, which is when we ran the split room, there was an experimenter on each side. But so the experimenter just followed him into the different quadrants,
Oh,
which is kind of weird, but maybe
a
it
little
worked.
creepy, right?
Yeah.
But
There actually were more than 4 things they were testing. So they were just, some of them were presented during each session and they counterbalanced it all and whatnot. But the things that were available were high five, hand squeeze, high physical attention, which was a massage, tickles, low quality praise, which was low volume, is how they defined quality here. So it was like below conversational level. Wow, great job.
Mhm.
High quality praise. Wow, oh my gosh, Tyson, that's amazing.
you're so good at that.
Thank you. Those were
I really felt the genuine.
Yeah, me too.
hopefully they were
interest.
more genuine because
Yeah.
I hate it when it's all fakey.
Oh yeah.
And kids know it too.
Mm.
Ugh. Don't do that. Okay. So they ran 45 of those sessions. They were 5 minutes each.
Wow. The hand squeeze seems weird. Tickles also seem weird for an 11-year-old,
Yep,
but
I'm
maybe
gonna
that
bring that
happens. Okay.
Yeah. Down the road. Yeah. I don't know. Hand squeezes. I mean,
What is
maybe
that?
it feels good.
Maybe. I just don't know
Like
what
you
it
just hold someone's hands and you squeeze them.
Oh, that's more appropriate than tickles, I think.
Mhm.
So, okay.
Yeah. All right. So they did that. They got some results from that, which I'll describe in a minute. Then they did functional communication training. So here, and this is maybe different than what you might be thinking, although Tyson could already say, "Go out, please," vocally, they wanted to add some additional stimulus control to the situation. So they introduced a communication board. Also because he didn't necessarily already have FCRs for all of these other attention types that they were teaching, right? So they added this board and they had him, identify what the different things were on the board and touch them while he was saying them to assist in discrimination between the mans. So they taught all of these new mans, which were high five, massage, hand squeeze, and then the go out, please, escape from attention that he already knew. All right. Okay. So now guess what? We're finally ready for treatment. We did all of our pre-assessments. We're finally ready.
But you kind of do need to do a lot of pre-assessments here, right? Because you have to make sure that you're assessing the right thing and treating the right thing.
Yeah.
Because it's so complex.
It is. Yes. And it's like different
Yeah.
than a lot of things I've read, the way that they approached this. So it had to be done pretty thoroughly. All right.
So, way to go them.
So now it was time for treatment. And treatment occurred in 3 or kind of basically 4 phases, to be honest. Phase 1 was baseline. In baseline, they had the FCR board available. And here they had high five, hand squeeze, massage, and no interaction were the options because those were the most highly preferred based on the preference assessment. Problem behavior occurred. It was not reinforced in this condition. And the experimenter was in the room, but they were like 6 feet away unless a response occurred. And then they came over and provided whatever it was for 30 seconds. So like 30 seconds of high fives.
Wow.
Woo! Let's do it. Let's do it. High five.
That's a lot of high fives.
Like a special handshake kind of high five.
That's how it was. So that's what they did in phase 1. And this was to determine if these other forms of social interaction were more preferred than no interaction. Right?
Yep.
So that's what they did there. And then phase number 2 is the same as phase number 1, except now they've also added in the escape from attention as an option here. Okay? And so now we're looking to see, is escaping from all forms of attention more reinforcing than accessing these other forms of social interaction, right? So everything was the same. Experimenter wasn't initiating conversation though. So it wasn't like that nonstop convo as before. But even with them just being in the room, if Tyson indicated the escape from attention request, then they left the room for 30 seconds.
He's like, oh no, you're going to high five me forever.
No, he liked the high fives.
I know, I'm just kidding.
He liked the high fives, but not the conversation. If at any point it was too much, they left the room for 30 seconds upon his request. And then in phase 3, it looked like phase 2, except now, if escape from attention occurred, they told him, okay, but you will have to wait for 2 minutes beforehand. And they engaged in 2 minutes of conversation, which in a resetting DRO interval.
Oh, I hate resetting.
Right.
It's mean.
So this was extinction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totes.
And required 2 minutes of free.
I understand resetting because it totally works, but it's so mean.
I don't know. So we'll talk about phase 3
Sure.
more. So basically, in this condition, he could pick 30 seconds of social interaction without conversation, either the hand squeeze, the massage, or the high five. Or he could escape from all attention by having the experimenter leave, but only following 2 minutes of conversation free from problem behavior. And then in phase 4, they did phases 2 and 3 with the caregivers.
I
with
love
his
that.
Parents. Yep.
Go
following
them.
behavioral skills training. And I already described to you that this was an A, B, C, A, C, D, C, D design.
D is with caregivers then, I imagine.
Yes, D is
Yep.
with care. Exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's what we know about that.
I love that they use the caregivers.
Yeah,
Right.
and it was an outpatient setting, right? So like that was the goal, is that they were going to introduce something that was going
Right.
to carry over to home. So that was appropriate for them. And they did social validity with the mom, and she liked what they had done. Got
Nice.
all high scores. On it.
Good. So that's awesome.
So to summarize the results, in the FA, no problem behavior occurred in the alone condition. So this was not likely SIB, like wasn't, maintained outside of social consequences. During the staff assessment, some behavior occurred during the interruption condition and the demand condition, but not during the escape from attention condition.
Interesting.
So they said, even though we're getting this, the parents are saying that it's definitely escape from attention. So why don't we just do this with the parents?
Sure.
So that's how they ended up with the pairwise
That makes
comparison.
sense.
And then they saw a lot of problem behavior occur in the context of escape from attention with the parents. So that's obviously what they went with.
Right.
Maybe should have just done that from the get-go.
One thing I love, though, is that they have those 2 assessments because we
Mhm.
know that behavior is based on function, not topography,
Mhm.
right? So the staff may be seeing the same topography of behavior at school, but it's going to function very differently than home. So I
Yeah.
actually love that they have those 2 assessment results to show that.
Yeah, and I also love that even though they didn't see it occur in the same context that the parents were reporting,
Right.
that they weren't like, well, it must not be a problem.
Right.
Mm.
Right?
I don't
They're
know
like,
what's
oh no,
happening.
we're going to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
Right? And they
Oh, I love
believed the
that.
parents, and they created the conditions under which they could see what the problem actually was.
This is a good example of collaboration right here.
Yeah. So then, even though they had, those occurrences in the other conditions, they said, no, looks like it probably really is, for the most part, this escape from attention condition. So we're going to go with that. In the attention preference assessment, they saw allocation of responding to the massage conditions and the high five conditions, and some in the low praise. But there was also problem behavior in the low praise, so that's why they didn't use that one.
Mhm.
And then the hand squeeze. And then he didn't respond well to tickles, but he's an 11-year-old boy. So why would
Right. But I was
you
also
test tickles?
But I was also thinking that parents may tickle 11-year-old, like their own kids, right? Staff shouldn't be tickling
Yeah.
kids, but parents might.
They
But
might, but this
still.
part was conducted with the staff. So
Yeah.
I'm just glad that that wasn't the one that was chosen, but
Right.
that might be something to think about.
Because that 11-year-old boy is going to be 12, then 13.
Yeah. So anyway, so he liked the massage, and the high fives
Don't
was
we
actually
all?
the most. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So then in phase 1, this was where he could choose between the social, but there was no escape from attention available. There were really low rates of problem behavior, so that was good. And he made steady rates of requesting across all types, but the most were in the high five. So that seemed to be the one that he was like really digging in that. Which just goes to show, right? It's not all forms of attention that were
Right.
problematic.
Yeah.
There was plenty that he liked a lot. He just didn't want to be subjected to these boring conversations,
Yeah.
I guess. And then in phase 2, now escape from attention was available. So here he requested that more than anything else. Okay. So
Fair.
when that was brought in, it was more preferred than the other social things, but he did still pick the other social interactions at least sometimes, like once every 2 minutes, basically. And he was requesting escape from attention once every minute.
Okay.
So, you know.
Seems pretty typical of an 11-year-old boy.
Right.
Yeah.
And now with phase 3, now escape from attention is only available after the 2 minutes of conversation. So delayed reinforcement. Problem behavior was now occurring at a higher rate, about 1 every 2 minutes. And they saw a shift in preference from the escape from attention to the social interaction options. So he was picking that more, right? Because, I mean, if you think about like the response effort, right?
Right.
Then that would kind of make sense that they saw some shift over there. And then in phase 4, this was the part with the parents. So the parents did the same things that they did in phase 2 and phase 3. So here they again saw more requesting in the social interaction condition than they did before. And very rarely was he requesting to escape from attention, which is kind of interesting. But they were seeing about 2 instances of problem behavior per minute.
It's kind of a lot.
Yeah. And then the graphs were quite variable. And over
Mhm.
time, it did decrease, right? But it was not perfect
Mhm.
underneath those conditions. So I'm interested in this study because I feel like I was like really on board up through phase 2. And then with phase 3, I kind of like lost the plot here a little bit in
Mhm.
that it seemed like such a huge jump to suddenly demand that he is free from problem behavior for 2 minutes while listening to a conversation. And maybe I'm just thinking about this the wrong way, right? Like, was the goal that he, tolerated the conversation? And if so, wouldn't they want to have shaped that up? Or was the goal here just to demonstrate allocation away from that as the preferred
Sure.
type of attention? And if that's the case, then I guess it makes sense. But it seemed like it probably was stressful for him.
Most DRIs with resetting, right, are pretty
Yeah.
stressful, and you do see more problem behavior with them. But I'm wondering if there was other considerations, right? Maybe they live with like a lot of family members, right? So they had to get there quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You never know, right? We don't know everything.
Yeah.
And they were, who knows? Maybe there's time constraints, so fading wasn't possible, right? I don't know, but fading would have been nice.
Maybe that wasn't what they were shooting for.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then they had, they saw better generalization with one parent than with the other parent. But it did seem like, given that the FCR for escape from attention was so low with the parents, that I wonder if they really had good, clear generalization to that setting.
Right.
Even though problem behavior decreased, but there was extinction involved. So that was happening. there. So they kind of ended it by saying, in quotes, that this was a step away from social avoidance and escape from attention toward appropriate social interaction, but they really weren't fully. I mean, that's the end of the quote, but I feel like they weren't really fully there, right?
And they're admitting it right there too, right? They're not like, we've done it.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
So there's some interesting choices, I guess, that were made here. But the thing that I do like a lot about this one is that they're recognizing that there's these different potential
Yes.
types of attention,
Mhm.
right? And we talk about attention as being reinforcing, but attention could be like anything under the sun, right? It's like social interaction is a huge category of behavior. And some of it's negative, and some of it's positive, and some of it's silly, and some of it's, didactic, right? And you can say something, and depending on how you say it, it could be taken to mean totally different things. And we should not assume that someone doesn't pick up on that, right? So I think that it's just important to think about the nuance of interaction and how it can function in different ways. And they brought this up too when we talk about social preference assessments and reinforcers, trying to kind of put things into that category. Sometimes what might be reinforcing about them is the physical interaction piece, right? And it's sort of socially mediated because it requires another person to be there, but that still functions differently than other types of social interaction. So it's a huge, broad category. And saying that something's attention maintained doesn't mean that it's a bad thing, right? It can be a really good thing. So I think that it's important to just think about the broadness of that category, and maybe we should do additional assessments to break down what is really entailed in there so we can better determine what might be preferred within the category. But I totally get the idea of wanting to escape from conversations. And there's nothing wrong with that either. But knowing how to ask for it's important.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Diana.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess I'm last to go. So let me reach into the bag, see what I get. Okay. Oh, look. I got computer-based training to teach observers to accurately score problem behavior using fast forwarding at 5 times normal speed. By Machado and Lazinski from Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis 2021.
Sounds perfect for you.
Now, have you ever had a bunch of video that you need to score for the occurrence of problem behavior, and you've got like 2 hours of video, and it's going to be like, an hour and 55 minutes of just nothing interesting happen, but you got to stare at it and you say, there's got to be a better way. Well, if you're like me, you want to live the multi-speed lifestyle. That's right. There's just not enough hours in the day to listen to podcasts or score behavior analytic, behavioral observation tapes. We got to speed things up. We're in the go-go 2020 decade, all right? We don't have time to watch things at normal speed.
I can't speed anything up, by the way. If I try to watch something at 1.5, my head starts spinning.
Well, out of the way, Grandma, because it's time for the modern era, and we are going to be talking about whether it is possible to score behavioral observations at faster speeds. Machado and Lazinski are coming with the assumption that everyone reading this is saying, I don't want to watch things at normal speed because it takes too long. And of course, we could always say, what if we used discontinuous measurement systems? But as we've read, and I think we've talked about on the show, I know Jason Barret's done some research on this. The more you use discontinuous data systems, the better chances that you are missing important data. So that's maybe efficient, but not necessarily going to be as precise as you would like. So what about looking at fast forwarding? I mean, fast forwarding would technically allow you to take continuous data throughout and be looking at the footage faster. So you catch everything that occurs. However, is it possible for the human eye to make these distinctions? And there actually was a study in 1984 by Linsheed and colleagues that did look at faster speeds. They looked at, it looks like 12 times speed, which they found to be reliable and efficient for some target responses across some of the observers and 2 of the children they were observing. And I'm wondering how they did that in 1984. I don't know if they were on their, their Betamax player and hitting fast forward with all the lines going up and down.
Probably.
I don't know how anyone scored anything appropriately because you can't actually see what's on the screen. For those of you listening who are like, I've only known DVDs and streaming players where they have little boxes, on Netflix going across so you can actually see all the frames of footage. It's not what it used to be like. It used to be very awkward in the analog tape days. But in any case, Machado in 2019 did a similar experiment at 3.54 and 5 speed across these 10-minute observation samples to see what would be the best if you used 3.5 speed recording, if you used a 3.5 second momentary time sample observation block, and if you just did sort of normal speed. And they actually looked at 10 minutes, they looked at 90 minutes as well. So like an hour and a half worth of footage. They did find that the observers were still accurate and still reliable in their data collection at 3.5 speed. They took 60% less time than any of the other methodologies. It was much more accurate than the MTS, and 5 out of 7 of the participants actually liked it compared to any of the other ways, either just normal viewing or the momentary time sampling method. So at 3.5 speed, how long does that take? Well, if you're looking at a 90-minute observation, you can complete it in about 26 minutes, which means you're reducing the amount of time needed to complete the task by 71%, which is a significant time savings. You could watch double the footage. You could watch 3 90-minute observation samples in the time it would take you to do one. You think about how efficient that would be. For some reason, they decided to jump to, what if you did it in 10 times speed? It would only take 9 minutes. But they quickly found out that once you got to 5 speed, your data started going right in the toilet. So 5 speed's probably about where we're going to settle, or at least at the moment.
10 speed seems like, why even bother?
What do you want? Yeah,
right?
like
what it's like.
Just give up and be like, I bet it was a lot. Let's move on.
What kind of behavior was it?
I actually don't. That was the 2019 study, so I did not read that to prepare. I'm just looking at this 2021 study.
Okay,
but they will talk about limitations to what behavior one could nominally observe accurately at even 5 times speed. So looking at the 5 times speed, you did also see a lot of omission of instances. So people just weren't able to take data on all of the occurrences. So you're losing.
So could they pause it?
No.
You certainly could pause it, but again, they'd omit it, so they wouldn't know it had happened. So it wasn't even a matter of, whoops, I forgot, and I got to go back and rewind. And ideally, I think you want a speed that you just kind of go through in one go with very little pausing, rewind, pause and rewind. But it seems like there were just errors of omission. So just,
I even do that. I have to do that at normal speed.
Me too.
Yes, I mean, it's going to depend on what behavior. I don't think you're going to do something that occurs at an incredibly high rate, like a stereotopy sample at 5 times speed. Can you tally that fast for, certain topographies of stereotopy?
No.
Probably not. So 5 times speed showed a lot of omission, but they were really settled like, maybe we could get people trained to take data at this speed. So 3.5 seems like you don't need a lot of additional training. If you know how to take data on certain topographies of problem behavior, you can do 3.5 speed. But can we eke out a little bit more time savings with that 5 times speed if we included a training component beforehand? So that's what this study is all about. We're going to use kind of a computer-based training to teach people to take data accurately at 5 times speed. That's just, this is the hill that Machado and Lisinski really want to die on, is 5 times speed observation.
Like, it must work.
3.5 seems pretty good to me. I mean, I rarely go over like 1.8 speed when I'm listening to things.
Which makes me so surprised, by the way.
That I can go that high, or that I don't go farther.
That you don't go farther.
Have you ever listened to that?
No, I can't.
It's horrible.
I can't listen to anything higher than normal speed.
It makes me want to crawl outside of my body.
That's my SEO. When I want Diana to leave me alone, I just put on a podcast at double speed.
I can't even describe how much I hate it, as you can see.
Wow. She really hates it, everyone.
You take a picture of that, put that on the Instagram. This is Diana's double speed podcast.
Her disgusted face.
She doesn't even want to do any more shows. She's just like, I'm looking at something else
over.
now. Show's done.
She feels like she's going to throw up. That's awesome.
I hate it so much.
I'm so sorry. That's why I got all the earbuds now. I do try to be sensitive to your dislike of multi-speed.
I think I would hate it too.
It's an acquired taste.
Rob can play it for you later. It's
okay.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Are we going to hear some different, or is that when things are backwards? Remember in high school?
When you listen to things backwards?
Oh, okay.
No, I listen to things going
forwards.
No,
I was like, is there a secret message if you go faster?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't have time to listen to podcasts about, Disney World rides at normal speed. There's too much going on in the day. Or old cartoons, which is what I like to listen to podcasts about.
Wow.
All right. So the purpose here, let's use our computer-based program. Let's train people to use 5 times speed for their observations. So we had 6 participants who volunteered, who I believe were at the school. They'd already been doing data collection for this, research lab before, so they were very familiar with working in this university-based clinic they're referred to. And they've done real-time use of a laptop to score data, which to me sounded like the hardest part of like typing in whatever they needed to type in.
Sure.
They'd done FAs, they'd done treatments, so that they were old hands at data collection at this point. They looked at a Beavers et al. Review of FAs, and they took out lots of topography examples from that study. So they had 3 main categories: aggression, disruption, and self-injury. Within those, they had multiple topographies. So, example, aggression, they had spitting, poking, pinching. Disruption would be things like elopement, crying, screaming, double time podcasts. I don't think that was in the 2013 study, but they should add it, see what you get. And then self-injury would be things like picking skin, slapping self, eye poking, poking ear. So multiple examples. So they had a lot of different topographies of problem behavior that they were going to put into their training.
Were they real or no?
Oh, so in terms of the training, these were from real, the Beaver study, I believe were real
clips?
No, the Beaver study was just real descriptions of them.
Okay.
The clips that were used in the training were done with Confederates. So it sort of felt like almost like something you might give like an undergrad or graduate class, like, okay, here's your list, get together with your partners in your breakout room, and I want you to make 30 clips, go.
Sure. I love the breakout room because now we're all asynchronous, so you have to use Zoom.
Yep. So they took any that were too similar or that they really expected to be impossible to observe at a fast forward speed. So, behaviors that were just subtle movements, or they were very similar to non-problem behaviored, topographies. They didn't
have been vocal.
No, they didn't use vocal because you can't hear anything when you're going at double speed. Well, actually, that's not true. You potentially could, but I think it would really be an extra challenge they weren't looking to tackle right now.
If
it's like a video and you fast forward it, there's no sound.
No, you can't hear sound at faster speeds. I'm not sure why you could versus why you couldn't. Like, I'm not sure if you take, I know if I took something on like the camcorder we have, it wouldn't play the sound. But I think if you encode it a certain way, there are ways that you can get video and sound that you can do the speed up process with.
By the time you've done all that, you could have just scored it.
Yeah. We're talking about percents of savings, Diana. Of course not. So from this final list, they took 9 topographies that they randomly assigned to pre-training or post-training sessions, and then the other 16 they put into their training program. So they basically just made a whole bunch of little vignettes, they called them. There were 10-minute vignettes, there were 90-minute vignettes.
I love that word.
Yeah, they loved it too, because they used it a lot in this study. And I think the one weakness in the study is they are describing such a clearly visual component of a study to not, and I didn't double check. I didn't see any links for the videos or any sort of, additional information, but I would have loved to see what the videos looked like, because I think reading the descriptions just does not do justice to what they did, because reading it's very confusing, because you're really just talking about how often the behaviors occur and how long the footage was and sort of what the participants were expected to do. And I feel like seeing a sample would have really, talking about saving time, I think watching a clip of their vignette, I would have gotten it in about 10 seconds, but reading it, I had to reread it over and over to kind of make a picture in my mind's eye.
Yeah.
So you've got these shorter videos, 10-minute vignettes with 9 episodes of problem behavior. They occur almost, 1 response per minute. The 90-minute vignettes had 24 episodes of problem behavior. They occurred about 0.3 responses per minute. And again, a response would just be the occurrence of an antecedent, the occurrence of problem behavior, and then a consequence event. So that's really what they were looking for in their coding. This was meant to be a computer-based training, meaning they had to put all of these kind of clips together and set it up so that you could just sit down, do your training, and then leave when you were done with your training.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah. You had lots of different topographies being used, and pretty much for each session of kind of your training, you would just sort of view a vignette. And it was pretty much just like a multiple exemplar training was their goal. Like, you're going to watch lots and lots of little vignettes. You're going to see lots and lots of topographies of problem behavior. They'd have some that had active responding, so they have to, write something down. They'd have ones where they, check their answers. They also had ones kind of without the active responding piece, where you sort of just like watch the vignette and that was all you did. And again, you'd see these topographies multiple times at the 5 times speed, first in the same order, and then you'd practice in an unpredictable order. So they really were trying to sort of build up your ability to identify and discriminate what it is you were supposed to be looking for in terms of the topographies.
That seems neat.
Yeah, and again, I would have loved to see these clips, because I'm like reading it and the way they described it, sort of described the general the procedure. Then they get into a little more detail of what the vignettes looked like. But it would have been great to just be like, here, this is what they saw, ba-bam. I think that would have been excellent. So again, I didn't double check. I didn't see a link, but if I totally missed it, or if anyone finds them, please send that link, because I'd love to see these videos. They might be proprietary though, so maybe you have to contact the author, which I didn't think about doing ahead of time until we were about to record. So not enough time to do that. Oh well. So the viewing vignette, so that was sort of the first part you would see. There would be a clip, and it would name the category and the topography of problem behavior that you're about to watch, and then you'd see it at 5 times speed. You'd see 16 clips. There was no duplication of any of these clips. You just sort of see them all come out, and each one took about 1 second. and you'd sort of see 3 times in a row with a second blank screen in between the first 2 presentations. So it took you about like a minute and a half to view all the clips at that 5 times speed. So that's just the viewing vignette. That's just like, here, this is what it looks like. Then the practice vignette. This is the one where you were actively responding in your training. You had 6 vignettes. There were 16 3-minute episodes for each topography of the behavior that was being trained. So they had 48 different episodes. There'd be a screen saying, here's the video, watch and score. Or practice video number 1, watch and score was what it said. Then you'd see the episode, it would be displayed. Then there'd be a prompt, review the timestamp on the screen for 3 seconds. It would just say, review your timestamp in big letters. And then you'd see a 3-second feedback screen that actually told you the right answer. So basically, it would just say, here's your video. You'd watch the video. You'd score the video in terms of like what time, what category, and what topography of problem behavior you saw. And then it would say, okay, double check. And then you'd see the answer, and you'd see if you were right or wrong. There were 32 practice trials within each vignette. So it took about 24 minutes to do all of these at 5 times speed. Again, the researchers made it clear they watched these at normal speed to score them.
Yeah.
So would have been a big confound there.
I like that. They'd be like,
Basically, what they were looking for were how accurate within the scoring window did you get the right topography within 2 seconds of its occurrence. They looked at what errors occurred, and really the only errors they ever saw in the training were errors of omission. They didn't see any other errors like the wrong topography, or they scored the right behavior but in the wrong 2-second interval. Like 97% of the time they noted it, they just didn't write anything down. They didn't note the problem behavior.
maybe because it was too fast.
I would guess.
Right?
I mean, you either
Like,
see it or you don't, right? And they were very small vignettes. So
Right.
the likelihood of getting the other error types were, probably just smaller based on the way the training went. They also looked at the efficiency. So how long did it take to score the vignettes or to complete the training as well, when they were talking about the training. And then they did social validity at the end. Hey, did you like watching these things at 5 times speed? Diana wrote, no, I hated this. And, stormed out of the
Diana threw
room.
up all over the computer.
I know. She's that there might be a traumatic event from watching these screens in the IRB form that you have to fill out.
Please call your counselor.
And this was pretty much just a multiple baseline across subject study. You have your first 3 participants doing the 10-minute vignettes, and then move on to the 90-minute vignettes, and again, all at the 5 times speed. Everyone knew how to do the timestamp training, so that wasn't a part of this training at all. They'd been in the lab before. So when you were in pre-training, you just get a randomly chosen vignette. They'd say, don't change the speed. You can review the timestamps at normal speed, however. So you were allowed to go back and watch at normal speed at the end of the session, and then decide do you want to keep, modify, or delete the scores you gave. They gave them no feedback about this.
Okay.
So they just said, go ahead, watch these and do your stuff. The computer-based training, again, you'd watch your viewing vignette. You'd score your 32 episodes of problem behavior from, the different randomly selected practice vignettes you were given. When you were done, you do your feedback. You could pause the video there to compare your answer. So it wasn't 5 times speed to check your feedback, which would defeat the purpose of the training.
How'd you do? You didn't do great.
Did you get it? Okay, it's time to move
Bye.
on.
Yeah.
Please, slow down. I don't know. You'd pause it. You'd compare. If you weren't correct, and it was correct would be you have to be within 2 seconds, then you would have to kind of go back and watch it again and write down the correct answer. If you were correct, you just unpause it, and you kept on going. The researchers would look at kind of recordings of the screen to make sure that you hadn't changed the speed and that you corrected your mistake. So they were checking to see if people were following this procedure correctly. So I kind of was a little surprised because when they're talking about computer-based training, I always assume the computer will do all the work. But it did seem like there was still some, human contact that needed to occur for this training to happen.
It's always the way it is.
I know. I want the machine to
Sadly.
just know my thoughts and just do the training for me and just set it and forget it, right? So, it took about an hour to do each of these trainings. They expected you to get 2 consecutive practice vignettes with no more than 10% errors before you could move into the post-training vignettes. And then in the post-trainings, you just got new vignettes. And you just kept going with the post-training vignettes until you scored 10 and 90-minute vignettes with no more than 11% and 10% errors, respectively. And that's that. So, what were the results? Well, as expected, because they'd already talked about it in their previous study, the pre-training accuracy was really variable, a lot more omission errors than you certainly would want to. They only looked at omission errors again because they really didn't make many of the other types of errors.
And it wouldn't make sense, just
No,
like you said.
Exactly. Training took about 2 or 3 sessions for each of the participants to get to that mastery. One person took 4. Wah, wah. They took a little more time.
That's okay. We're all unique.
It's okay. But they made a big point to say, one person did take 4 times. They met the accuracy criterion on the post-training after 1 session or maybe 2 sessions. So once the training was done, they were pretty much good to go with the 5 times speed accuracy. It took about 8.4 minutes to score the 10-minute vignettes and 30.8 minutes on average to score the 90-minute vignettes, which is 66 percent decrease in time. And pretty much all of them liked the procedure.
Diana didn't do it.
Diana didn't do it. They already worked in this lab too. So, I mean, there might have been a little bit of a bias of like, we love your new procedure, Professor. Not saying anything, or just, they had already been in that lab, so they may have been
not saying anything, but
they may have been more interested in this, or they may have been excited to try 5 times. There may have been people like me who are like, I can't wait to do things at 5 times speed.
or maybe all of them were like, I cannot watch a 2-hour video again.
Oh
there
my-
has
yeah,
to be
yeah.
a better way, and then they're like, let's do a study and see if you like it, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. They're just, they can't do it anymore. Anything is better than this.
This came out of a socially significant problem.
So, what did we learn from this study? Well, that if you want to make more efficient use of your time, you can train yourself or train others to record at least certain topographies of problem behavior. And it's a pretty big list of topographies. So, I mean, it's probably a significant amount of what you would be looking for in most of these behavioral observations anyway. You can train yourself to watch these videos 5 times speed and really save yourself hours and hours of time to score them, which is great. The training is going to have some sort of a kind of a multiple exemplar component, and that you're looking at lots and lots of examples. You probably want to have, could they have scored these just with the inactive responding? Probably the active responding was important, but they didn't really test that. They did both of them. And then the feedback. Was the feedback necessary or not necessary? Again, probably a necessary component from what we know about training individuals in anything, but
Right.
who knows what's the most important component here? Was it the fact it was multiple exemplars? Was it the active responding with the feedback? Was it a little bit of everything?
Thesis sessions, right? You could run these 2 ideas as thesis.
Yeah, there you go. It took about the average of 2.8 sessions per participant to, reach mastery. So that was almost 3 hours just to do this training. So, it's one of those things where like your initial investment might be a lot, but think of the savings down the road, like getting
Right.
solar panels on your house. It's like, oh, but eventually you'll be saving money.
We do.
They did say that a lot of the participants did seem like after one session, they probably could have done the post test. So you might be able to get away with like, here, do this training once and now score these videos. So if one were going to do this again, you could sort of do a probe of how good are you after just one training session?
Right.
And some folks might, be ready to go.
Like you.
Like me, because I'm living that 5 times speed lifestyle.
My head would explode. Literally. They'd be like, you want to do it again, Jackie? I'm like, I can't.
Yeah.
But
Some
I
of
don't
us
know
are
how
young
Rob does
forever,
what he
and
does.
some of us are just
Yeah.
aging.
I'm
They
aging.
can't handle
It's
it.
fine.
So this training, again, if done, could save folks a lot of time, especially if you're in a setting like I'm in public school settings, where if I said, I got to score this hour-and-a-half video, I would be like laughed out of the room. Like, when are you going to score? There's no time to score that. I don't
Yeah.
know. Take it home. Have a great time. Make an evening of it. But not everyone really like loves that idea of like, I can't wait to watch these hours of video at home.
You're right, though. I mean, it could take a long time in the beginning, but if you're going to have staff there for like 2 to 3 years, the savings will be a lot
Mhm.
because I'm looking at your note here. 18 minutes
Yeah.
for a 90-minute video. That's
Yeah.
like a lunch break.
You're getting down to like really low
Yeah.
numbers. And again, not everyone might be able to learn to do this training. We've already talked about how the two of you would not
Right.
like this. Some people might not actually be able to score accurately at 5 times speed,
Well, I think you're going to be limited in what types of behavior you can score
Yes.
here. So, like, my experience has been in scoring really tedious second by second behavior, either because it's behavior that's occurring at really high rates or it's a complicated system. Like, I had this whole play code that I made for my dissertation, or adapted. I didn't make it up. I adapted it for my dissertation, and it required like each 10 seconds to be placing the highest type of behavior into a certain category. And it was really complicated, right? So like there's no possible way you could do that at 5 times speed.
There's also the fact that all these trainings were used, they used Confederates. So nobody scored any real data in this. They scored pretend data, training
Right.
data. So will this then work when you actually are scoring something that matters, which is, problem behavior data you're going to need to assess your treatment or, assess your research study. So that could also be a big difference or a big confound or limitation there. They also suggest, what if you just use this to find when the behavior occurred so that you could go back and then watch only at those codes. So that might be something if you're interested in like more qualitative data about problem behavior. Like I just need to know when it happens in this huge long clip. So that one seems like probably a good middle ground because I mean, how many times are you like, I need to watch this whole 2 hours. All of it's so important. There's only going to be fits and starts in which you actually are interested in what's happening. So this might be a way to sort of speed up that process, but not lose the accuracy of your ability to note these problem behaviors are
That makes
occurring.
sense.
Considering a mission is the biggest error you made, you can't say, well, I'll watch this 2 hours. I'll watch it at like quintuple speed. And then if you miss all the occurrences, you can't even go back and know when you're supposed
Right.
to have watched,
Yeah.
have to go back and watch. So again, something for those of you who want to live in the go-go 2020 decade lifestyle like me, and you really want that extra speed in your behavioral observations.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to make sure you get that second secret code word. It's tabby. Tabby, Tabby. Just like the cat of the same type, breed. Tabby.
All right. Sound fun? You want to do it all now? Or should we all,
No, thank
No?
you.
Oh, okay.
Nope.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the grab bag episode. Huzzah! No dissemination station because I don't know what commonality you would find in all three of these studies put as one. It's a general principle.
Do you know what it is?
What is it?
Behavior analysis.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go. Good job.
Winning!
like tigers love high fives.
Tigers love high fives,
Fast
hate
high fives.
conversations,
They got to go so fast.
and like to learn their information via podcast at 5 times speed. That's their enrichment.
Well, that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you, Jackie and Diana. And thank you to the listener for listening to ABA Inside Track. We would love to hear from you. We'd love it if you subscribe to the show, if you left us reviews on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you like to get your podcast. We'd also like to hear from you in all sorts of other ways. Certainly, we'd love for you to visit us on our website, abainsidetrack.com, where you can find links to all of the articles that we've discussed, as well as links to our old episodes and a place to get CEUs if you're so inclined. You can also find these posted on our YouTube page with the YouTube subtitling feature. And if you'd like to reach out through social media, we're on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, and Twitter as ABA Inside Track. And if you enjoyed this and said, I wish I could have a less formal, more fun-filled conversation, maybe with some additional extra long podcasts I can listen to at double speed about, say, a book, why not come join us on patreon.com/ABA Inside Track, where for just $5 a month, your support can get you into our social tracker tier, where you're able to join us every other month for a social meetup with other behavior analysts. If you're interested in those extra long podcasts, at the $10 level, you can get, I think they're going to come out to be about quarterly, our long book club length podcast. We have 2 out right now. We have the Meaningful Differences discussion, and should have just been come out maybe about a month ago, our discussion on neurotribes. So that's all over at patreon.com/ABA Inside Track. And finally, if you just want to say hi or give us some of your feedback or a topic idea, you can write us at abainsidetrack@gmail.com. Well, I guess that brings us to the end of another fun-filled grab bag. We'll be back next week with a more on-topic topic. But until then, keep responding. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Only double speed.
Bye bye bye.